Next up on our agenda hits more to home for you than it does for me. I'll just set it up and then you could go to town on it. Facebook's Confetti app, which has, from what I've gathered, been one of the more consistent apps and has had a lot of fun with what they've done. Unfortunately, decided to end its run Friday on June 28th.
On the in the States, because Vietnam has 100,000 playing, and then of course Mexico has about 1 million people playing twice a day. Sponsored by Business Insider, it started last mid late July last year, and routinely I think you would have the best written questions. You would not have it be on a green screen, but a live stage. You'd have some skits. You'd occasionally have some performers and DJs way back in the early days. But the pay was almost always consistent, and they actually paid the money. Not every app will do that because they're not consistent. But I won of 249 games they did. I won 75 of them, and that's a little bit artificially low because I had some issues with them around the fourth quarter last year with basically seeing questions, and thankfully they fixed that. But I won about, including the money I won for my family and friends, I'd say about I won $6,000 doing that, and I
Wow.
won about 30% of no, a little more than 30% of the games. And they ask always very hard questions too, because you're not going to get big payouts without tough questions. They would ask like 3 or 4 part questions, 10 seconds to answer it, and it was great too because you could see what your friends were answering almost always in real time. So you could trust them, you could not trust them, which is always an interesting strategy, heck against them. Or you could split, obviously. So, like, if your friend said this, you might go something else and you don't know because you want to see one of you get it right. The problem is with them in the US is that Facebook probably didn't see it as important. And then they never reached above 30,000. The reason behind that, I think, and its postulation, is pretty simple. The shows that I mentioned, excuse me, the countries that I mentioned, Mexico and Vietnam, were countries that did not have HQ trivia as a predecessor. And Confetti by Business Insider, I'm not sure if it was by Business Insider and the other ones, but the Confetti brand was the first trivia app that these countries had ever experienced. And you talk about how big HQ was in its heyday, certainly it kind of matched that. And so the early bird gets the worm. But if you're being about 9 months late on the craze, and let's be honest, it's an app craze, then you're probably too late to join the party, which is great for, people like me who love the trivia and I'm going to play it no matter the outlet, but it's not good for the brand's success as the whole. They had routinely crazy prizes, though. I'd say the median prize was maybe $50. The lowest, it never paid below $1, which is impressive, but it never paid below $2. But usually it was over 10. They tried to always make it over 10, up to $5,000 one time on a fast food game for 5 lucky winners. And I'll miss it, honestly. It was a very, very consistent source of income on my end. I used it to play with friends, to make friendships, and really take out probably what was at least 5 figures, if not six, combined with what I did. I
That
mean,
is
I mean, I
very
know I'm going to
impressive.
go to Mexico if I ever win big on an app, because that way I can play confetti there.
I always find that interesting when, because I remember back in the day, I have a few friends that would always do surveys, for Swagbucks and other sites, and you would get these perks and points and stuff like that. This seems like the new version of it for more technically savvy people, who have smartphones and stuff like that.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, Swagbucks obviously still exists. It has its own game, SB Live,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you can get rejoins by doing surveys. So it all really nicely ties together. And the companies that succeed these days, you talk about SB Live in particular, I think that comes to mind, is companies that already had an existing infrastructure. Like SB Live only gives away $4,500 a week, or 450,000 swag bucks equivalent a week. Is that right? Yeah, 450,000 swag bucks a week. And they
Right.
probably make it back because they're smart with how they ask if you ever miss a question. If you ever miss, you can always join back, but it will cost USB, which is indirect gambling, and I'm fine with that. Trust me. I spent one time $50 to rejoin on their game, and I won 333 because I was one of 3 people to win a Disney History Legacy game. That was nuts.
Nice.
But what they do to determine what your how many Swagbucks you have to buy back in, it's the pot of the game, which is usually 1,000, divided by the number of people to get the question correct, divided by two, and you can always get it right from that every single time. So I reverse engineered it because I was curious. But that means sometimes you can pay if it's really that tough of a game, you can pay more than you'll win. That has happened once. But the model is smart because the company's ultimately making money off that. I don't know if they're making a profit. I've been meaning to calculate a random game to see if they actually earn the money back. But that's therein lies the problem. If you don't have an infrastructure where the users give back, or you don't have something part of a larger concept, if you have a brand in isolation, and I think this was to an extent a huge problem. They have a lot of other ones, but the fact there was no reason to give back, they took a little bit too long on advertising too, because Confetti didn't advertise either. But if there's no way to really reach out, advertise your game, and you can have all the thousands of people liking it. You could have about 500,000 people liking the Confetti page, but you're only getting 30,000 of them to play. There's not. We talk about this with YouTube videos actually about search engine optimization. That really wasn't all that great, despite the fact you had Business Insider and Facebook, borderline illegal. But I mean, they had that combination. That could have worked. They they really didn't have a retention rate. Yes, you had people like me and my friends who would play literally every night it was possible, but there was no reason for a person to come back. And I mean, eventually, by the time they introduced the VIP High Five, which was you play 5 games, not necessarily in a row, but just play five and you get a life, it was too late. And the payouts ultimately suffered a little bit from that. I mean, once again, they struck too late. Confetti was the example of Cinderella past midnight. A great time at the party, but ultimately, the Coke had to turn into a pumpkin at some point for them, be it from when they started to really when it ended. And to me, I find that unfortunate. Thankfully, there are so many other games where I continue to make money, but make does not necessarily mean earn. A lot of these apps will advertise these great things, but they will not pay you because they don't think you're legit. Because you know too much. It wouldn't be human to do that. It's kind of astonishing. Confetti was the none, bar none, the best possible for that. They would never take more than like 72 hours to get you all of your money, no matter if it was a few dollars, and it automatically would cash it out for you too, which is amazing. Or if it was a few $1,000s. I still will never forget the time I won. I was one of 17 people to win my share of $15,000. And then when I won 5 games of 13 questions in a row, I missed the 13 question games because they reduced it to 10. But I
Mm-hmm.
won five 13 question games in a row, 65 questions. And so I put it in the group and I asked for a shout out from the host, Katie Witherspoon, who does a great job with this video game review work. Um, and I wound up getting like a minute shout out saying how I had won $730 the past week and I had won all 5 games. Like, it was incredible. Like, that's the kind of thing that sticks with you. I mean, they tried to do so much with viewer retention and shout outs. Like, if you want to talk about flaws of Confetti to an extent within the game, from my experience, or people who are really devoted into it, they, towards the end, would spend at least 10 minutes after the clock struck zero for a game starting, devoted strictly to shout outs. And you would have the other 20 minutes devoted to the game itself. I think that's a little bit much because why are you going to care about really any shout out other than your own? Strictly because that's how ego works in this country. Yours is said, that's great. What's the point now? And that's part of the retention problem. I've noticed that issue with really no other app. Other ones will do shout outs, and I understand that. It's not my favorite part to say the least, but it doesn't drag, and it's and Telly, formerly Ripcord, I think gets that correct. They'll do it
Hmm.
like after a third of the game and two-thirds of the game, so that way you know you can pace yourself and things start quickly.
Yeah, and is Ripcord still around, or have they
Ripcord
got
has changed
rebranded?
its name to Telly, because
Okay.
I think they're switching eventually to more variety shows, which is certainly an unprecedented move, although I do like it. So,
All right. So we'll look out for that. Sorry to hear about Confetti ending. I always heard great things about Confetti. Who
oh
knows?
yeah,
Maybe it'll come back.
I mean, from what I understand, it definitely will not be. I wish I could say it was the case. Like, there's reason to think the Confetti brand can succeed, but it won't be here, and I don't think there was anything they could do about that. And it's a shame, really, because they are the best with support. Because I had a question about cashing money out. Because the first time I won them, the first game I played, 12,500. They had no winners because the questions were very tough initially, and then 47,500 winners got $585 each. I won on my phone, my mother's phone, and a sister's phone. I just cashed the hell out that night. I tell you what.
Wow.
Yeah, that was sick. And I mean, at one point, it made more money per week than my job. I made more money, and I just that app too. That's not even considering any other app because I play all the apps and I pretty much crush them every time. Because Jeopardy's my favorite show, so that's on
Hmm.
right now. So I'd like to think I know a bit about trivia. So
Well, there you go. Um, we'll have more app news in the coming shows, which is Jess's department, and I'm sure she'll have a lot more when it comes more app news in future shows.
oh yeah, definitely. Like if I get a big win or something, you'll be the first to hear about it, and you'll probably get an exclusive for me, at least initially. Because
Yeah.
I like to be vocal. I've always loved the big stage.